so everybody get in.
Is that how it works here? We don't.
Okay,
this
folks,
one
we're
problem.
live, so anyone who's tuning in, we apologize for the meeting starting late. We had technical difficulties at the Armory Annex. So we're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. First item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Does anybody have anything they'd like to add or delete at this time? Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. Okay, there's a motion by David, a second by Pat. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries. Next item is communication from the public. Chris, do you have anything?
All good.
Number 3, we have approval of the minutes, and David passed those out, and just to give everyone time to read those, we'll go ahead and take a look at those at the next meeting to approve. Moving on to item 4, as our Baker Tilly Advisory Group, and this is our annual tip update. We have Jason Simler here from Indianapolis, and we'll just turn it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me back again this year. Sherry said this is the annual report that we've done for a number of years. I think I did this for, can't remember how many years going on now, but a few years it actually became law that it was required that every year you'd have this annual presentation to go over the TIF areas and kind of discuss, what's the purpose of the TIF and what the impact of having the TIF areas on the overlapping tax units. So by doing this report, you can check that off your box. One other thing that we always kind of do this presentation about this time of year, because as you may remember, another requirement of the Redevelopment Commission is each year by June 15th, you have to make a determination whether there's any excess assessed value that you want to pass through to the overlapping tax units. And you're supposed to send that letter, that notification to all the overlapping tax units and the county auditor. This year it's more important than ever that we do that requirement. Typically, for you guys, I'll explain not as much as not as important, but this year, if you do not receive that letter, if the county auditor does not receive that letter, he or she is required to pass through 5% of the assessed value from each allocation area. So it's important for us to get those letters and send on time. And I have an example of a letter that we prepared for you. You guys can use it if you want.
That would be great.
Okay.
I'd love to have that.
So I have that here as well. So usually at this time, kind of make that determination whether there's any excess or not. But I'll kind of go through this report. It's similar to what we've done in the past. I'll kind of skip to page 1 if you want to go there. And before I kind of go through each individual area, I mean, I know in the past when we've had these meetings, we've always, it's kind of been brought up good conversation, if not just maybe about each individual TIF area, but about the TIF in general, about maybe what you can and can't do with TIF. So as I'm going through these schedules, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to stop and we can ask those questions and address them right then. Again, whether it's regarding that individual TIF area or just TIF questions in general.
We did have a couple new members, so more would be better than less this time. Okay.
So straight to page 1, right now you only have 2 TIF areas still outstanding. You've had more than that in the past, but we've ended those areas as either the development never occurred as anticipated or the projects were funded and we ended the TIF areas, but you still have 2 left. And the first one I want to talk about is Perry County Allocation Area number 3, or what I refer to as the Wakaka TIF area. Page 1, it lists some of the outstanding bonds that you have issued over time. I won't, read this through you, but you've had a number of bonds, as early as 2014, and then those were refinanced in 2021. It says 2021 bonds are still outstanding. Probably the most important thing is the last paragraph, is those bonds are payable from the tax increment generated from this area, which I'll go through here in a minute. But they're also guaranteed by a minimum taxpayer payment from Wapaka. So it's $685,175 every 6 months. So $1,370,000 in taxes each year. So if they don't pay that amount of taxes, then they will pay the Redevelopment Commission a shortfall payment. And that has happened for the last few years. We work with the auditor's office and calculate what they actually pay. And then we send them a letter, and then they write a shortfall payment to the Redevelopment Commission every 6 months. And the reason for the shortfall, it wasn't so much that they didn't invest what they said they were going to invest. It's just the tax rates actually has decreased out here in the township. So a great thing for the taxpayers, great thing for the county, but reduction in tax rates means reduced TIF. So that's why one of the main reasons why the TIF isn't as high as what we had originally anticipated. The
But I
tax rates
did note that the assessed value has gone down as well, but anyway, that's another issue.
Yeah, we can talk about that too. Page 2. Again, for those that are new, there's a little bit of verbiage here about when the TIF area was created. It was created in 1995. So it has a 30-year life. So it ends November 16, 2025.
And so, Jason, am I correct? The last payment is January of 27?
The last year of TIF, or last payment?
Last bond payment.
Bond payment.
That's what I'm wanting to know.
Yes.
January of 27.
Correct.
And is it possible to pay that? I know we can pay that off early.
Yes.
But my question is, where are we allowed to get funds from in order to pay that off? Only from this TIF district, or from something like our web will that is no longer active but has $320,000 in it?
If you can make the argument that the web will TIF area benefits the Wapaka TIF area, you can use TIF from that area.
They're like this.
But I think you have enough funds in just this area.
In just this area,
Yeah,
you think
which
we would
I'll-
have
which
enough?
I'll go
Okay,
over here in a minute.
I'm sorry, I'm
No,
jumping the
No,
gun.
those are good questions.
Okay,
So you said it ended last fall.
Yes. So it ended November 16, 2025, but the assessment was January 2025, K26. So this is the last year that we can collect the revenue.
okay.
So
So
the
it
TIF
can't
area,
be dissolved until all the bonds are paid off, or it
Well-
can't be because it actually expired.
it's expired, but you're going to collect I'm not sure you have enough money in the bank right now, you can pay the bonds off, but you're going to collect money in December of 2026, and that's used to make the January 2027 payment. So you're going to get 2 more settlements, June of 26 and December 26.
And so if we could pay that off in June, we could dissolve it then.
It's going to dissolve automatically.
It's
I mean,
sunsetting.
it's sunsetting. The life by statute is over.
Okay, so technically, even though we don't have all of the payments, it is dissolved.
It's currently outstanding, but as of January 1 of 2027, it'll be
right.
dissolved. Now you'll still have a payment due, but you'll make that payment from what you collected in December.
Unless you pay it.
And that's what I'm wondering.
So, I mean, there's no reason to dissolve it early because, I mean, you're collecting the revenue in December no matter what, because you've already been certified, the tax rate's been certified, property taxes have gone out. You're going to collect the settlement in June and December.
Understand.
Yeah.
Understand.
Yeah. So you have 2 more settlements left. And as I'll share, when we were outside waiting to get in, I was kind of going through this because I started with Umball at the time in 1999. And I think the first bonds that were issued in this area was 1998. So this was like my first real project. And my boss, Gary Malone at the time, there was a lot of negotiations between Perry County and Wapaka. Some tense negotiations, some of you were here about. But so it was my first real project in the real world right out of college. So it's kind of sad to see this TIF area end as I was going through this, but it's been exciting. And we'll show here in a minute later on the benefits of this TIF area and what that means to taxpayers. But for page 3, looking at the revenue that we do collect, we collect it from the facility and from the equipment. So here is the assessment has actually gone up from 25 to 26, from 17 million to 20 million. Take that times the tax rate, you can see we anticipated to collect $310,000 last year. We anticipate to collect $367,000 this year. Next page is the equipment. We do capture the equipment from the facility as well. So you can see the equipment has gone up a little bit from last year as well. By taking it times the tax rate, we should anticipate $908,000 last year, $952,000 this year. The next page just combines the both real and personal property tax increment. So you can see in 2025, we had estimated that you collect $1,218,840. If you look at footnote 3, you actually collected $1,218,834. So Wapaka paid their taxes and paid on time. And then you can see this year we're anticipating $1,319,270. So page 6, as was mentioned, there is one bond still outstanding. It just has 2 payments left. You have a payment here in July, about $530,000, and then a payment in January of another $530,000. So if you turn the page, we compare the tax increment that we discussed, the $1,319,270. But as I had mentioned, when we negotiated these bonds, we negotiated with Wapaka, they'd make at least a property tax payment of $1,370,350. So they're $51,080 short. So that's about $25,000, $26,000 payment that they'll make in June, because they'll be short in June, and they'll be short in December as well. So that's one thing we may want to think about, because, and I'll show you in a minute, you have enough cash in the bank right now to pay these bonds off early. But if you pay these bonds off early, that taxpayer agreement goes away. So then Wapaka wouldn't be required to pay that $51,000 shortfall payment anymore. So if you want Wapaka to pay the entire $51,000, you want to keep the bonds outstanding.
Understand.
So, I mean, that's completely up to you. Now, if you turn the back page,
What page number is it?
page 6, let's say you pay these off in July. Just instead of making the next payment, you pay the extra $525,000, you'd be saving that interest of $8,596 in interest. So if you paid it off early, that's how much you're saving, approximately $8,000.
But also losing the 51.
But you're also losing the $25,000, half of 51. So that's completely a internal decision and how you want to handle that. But because I thought the same thing. Oh, you can pay this off early, but then I thought, well, you'd be foregoing that additional revenue.
Is this 8,596? Is that for 6 months or is that?
Yes, that's for 6 months.
So it'd be an additional 6 months. Okay. I'm just doing some.
Yeah. So on all of this.
Okay.
Yeah, so July, here in a couple months, you'll be paying $515,000 in principal and $17,000 in interest for a total of $532,000.
And then the difference of the 51, yeah.
And then if you wanted to pay the entire thing off, then you pay the extra principal of $525,000 and save that $8,500 in interest.
Which is the 51. So.
That you,
Can I ask what the 51,000 would be from? Because if we're closing out the TIF in January,
It's their addition.
but it's for 26. It's they have to make a payment of $1,370,000 in 2026.
The deficiency payment.
So if we come up short, they have to make up that difference. And so they have 2 installments of the 25, whatever.
But if we pay the bonds off early, that agreement goes away. That agreement goes away once the bonds are paid off.
Does that make sense, Chris?
yeah, but the bonds, we would be having the bond paid off in 2027, so the fund should be depleted anyway, right?
I think it's because you're a year behind with your assessments. And so that's why we're paying, it ended last fall, but we're still collecting in 26. And so I guess he's saying as of the last date of 26, 27, it's over. We'll just have our last, is that right?
Yes, yeah, is that right? So page 8 just looks at the historical tax increments. But page 9, this is where I think you have funds on hand. I mean, based on information that we received from Chris and then also from the trustee, in your allocation fund, you have, this is as of April 1st, $769,000. But with the trustee at Old National, you have money in a bond fund of $37,000. There's still $61,000 in the construction fund. And then when we set up the bonds, we created a debt service reserve of $623,000. So just in the funds that you have at the bank, we have enough money to pay them off.
I'm surprised they made that agreement when you have that debt service fund. I mean,
Well, and we did that just to be extra cautious
yeah, I
because.
get it, but I just,
So what you're saying is we have enough funds in the bank that we could just pay this off tomorrow?
Yes.
My question is, what's the benefit?
Well,
Other than the
if
differences
Wapaka
here.
wasn't paying that makeup, it would be savings of interest. But
Right, but
that's a
it's not,
different
yeah,
story
we're
now.
losing about
Yeah,
$34,000.
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
And we did that with Will, I believe.
Because
We
Sure,
paid that
sure.
one off
we're
early.
not gonna, correct me if I'm wrong, we're not gonna, budgets are set, tax rates are set.
Mhm.
The county taxpayer is not gonna benefit anything
Correct.
because tax rates are set. We can't change that. What it would do, we would continue to collect the monies for the next 2 installments, June, December. Would that money would stay in the general fund?
No, it would go into this allocation fund.
So it would stay in this fund,
Yeah, in this fund.
which could be,
So,
either way you look at it, it's seed money for a new project, whether we spend it and pay the bond. No, we're not gonna gain anything other than the savings.
you would be
for
doing
the founder.
Wapaka a favor.
That's right. It would be a benefit to Wapaka.
Yes.
But for us, because these funds are set, we're just replenishing.
so going on topic but off topic a little, how you said then the money would go back into the allocation fund. And so that's always been my question. We have Web Will, which is inactive and carries almost $320,000. We have what we call the TIF allocation fund, which was actually the courthouse fund.
Right.
The courthouse TIF fund.
Mhm.
And then let's say we did, want to do this and pay this off, we'd still have those funds. Aren't we supposed to return that to the tax-paying entities that paid that in?
You have a couple of options. One, you can just keep what you've done in the past, is you keep that money in the allocation fund, and then as capital projects come up, then you can use those monies for those capital projects.
And when you say capital projects where?
Within
Do you
that.
understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Do they have to be in the
Just in serving or benefiting the TIF area. So for-
benefiting the TIF
So
area?
for like Wapaka and Web Wheel, if you have any roads that need new construction, those roads benefit the TIF areas. They benefit those facilities. So
Wasn't
instead
this project, wasn't this armory redone with the courthouse
Yes.
TIF money?
Yes.
So it was in the area and it benefited the area.
So then how do we say that was the courthouse? I understand how this benefited the courthouse. How are we using those funds for Forest Canton? I'm just trying to understand. That subdivision, Forest Canton is our housing subdivision,
Mhm.
and
And you're using the downtown TIF? Or I mean, the courthouse TIF?
what we call the allocation fund, yes.
Yeah.
Now, technically, the sale of the property out there that we got from the hospital, that comes in, we put it in the allocation fund, and I had discussed this with Chris earlier today. I want to make sure we're not doing something improper. We're basically using that allocation fund as a checking account for Forest Canton. I'm wondering if we should not have a separate fund for that. We have property that we had from, Tony, you've been longer than I am, so you correct me if I say do this wrong. It started before I ever got on it, but we have land from the hospital. And so what we're doing is we're selling those. We had it all developed and everything, and it's build ready. And we're selling those at $15,000 per lot. And each one we sell, we give $10,000 then back to the hospital to return. Basically, they gave us an interest-free loan, if you will. And so we're using that account to make all of those transactions. So let's say David bought a lot, the money that he used to buy the lot are going into that allocation fund. Is that improper?
I'd probably recommend keeping the land proceeds in a separate fund and keep it, because that is still your money, but it's not, doesn't have any strings. It can
Nothing
be
to
used
do
for
with it.
anything, where the TIF is more restrictive. So you kind of commingled your money.
Yes,
So,
and that's
you
what,
know, if State Board of
disturbing.
Accounts comes in and audits the redevelopment commission,
Mhm.
they may wanna try to trace back, okay, where your land proceeds go versus TIF, so.
even when someone hooks up to utilities, we're getting a rebate of $3,000 from Southern Indiana Power for each line, and we're just putting that in there. And to me, we're using it as a checking account, and it should be separated.
I would keep it separated.
And commissioners would just need to do an ordinance for a home rule fund for the courthouse or for the Forest Canton. And then we pull the money that we've received from Forest Canton that's been put in allocation.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
Those are good questions, and that's,
So then here's another question then. Money from that allocation fund, how do we connect that? That allocation fund, again, is the courthouse tip.
mhm.
We still have top coat paving of that subdivision, which we were using money out of that to do. How is that connected to the courthouse? I'm not trying to cause
Yeah.
problems, guys. I just want to make sure we're
The
doing
way I
things legally.
recall that,
Was
it
it
was
your-
because it was in the area.
You can make, and I don't think I was privy, I mean, I know that you guys I was familiar with the project and involved in a lot of those discussions, but it could have been where all those houses are generating new business for all the businesses in the courthouse tip area. And so that could be
Okay,
the,
I just want to make sure we're
Smell
doing it properly.
That was my understanding.
Okay, and I could understand how you could connect the school corporation when we, that's a whole nother area we're going to talk about, how you could connect that to anything, because education
Yeah.
is important for everything, but, okay, and I'm sorry, I keep getting you off track, and I was
That's right.
asking about what we're supposed to be
You
doing.
gave us option one, use it for capital projects.
Right,
Did you have a second option?
a second option, which I think I've seen one or two clients do, is, say the $700,000, you give this back to the county and they distribute it through the local, to reallocate it
Based
to
on
the electric
percentage,
tax units.
based on tax rates?
Yeah.
so it would be reallocated to the units,
So like say the
not that
school,
pay the taxes, but we're talking like the police department and the schools, it would be reallocated to them.
Yeah.
And if we did that, we don't have to necessarily do that with every fund, we could do that with, say, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Based on tax rates?
Yeah. So really you just transfer that money to the auditor, and then the auditor, it just flows through your like regular settlement, and it just gets allocated like any other settlement would, proportionally to Troy Township, because that's where the tip area.
And that would require the commissioners to agree to that. Right?
Okay, so
That's on
this
option
unit
two.
can't make that decision. The commissioners would.
When you
Well-
can send it to them, I think, but I
You know what? Now that I say that, I mean, you would definitely have to approve it too.
I understand, but I'm just wanting to know
I think the
the order of
commissioners
operations.
would as well.
I thought that's what happened
Yeah.
before, but it could be changed.
Yeah, because I know the commissioners had to, when we dissolved the tip areas, the commissioners had to approve that.
Okay. And so is another option then to just return the money to the commissioners?
No,
That's not an option? Okay. So
I
it's
mean,
one of those
most
two, either capital projects or reallocate it to the units
Yeah.
that,
So it stays in the account until something else happens.
Yeah.
Capital project that we would want to move on, or,
that's what I see happen most of the time is you try to use it for capital projects. So you're not using, cash on hand and dipping into the county's reserves.
but they need to remain, the ones that have a reserve of funds need to remain separated so that we spend them in the correct areas, correct?
yeah, sure.
Yeah, like, so Wapaka, I mean, you're right, a lot of the areas are very close together.
Right,
But yeah, I mean, you can do it for any capital project that's in serving or benefiting the TIF area. You can give, up to 15% to schools for the statute, or you can help fund operating for fire and EMS. That was a new law that just happened a couple years ago.
Repeat
Oh,
that.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
Operating for police and fire.
for police and
So-
fire only.
Capital projects can then be in lieu of that as well, like
Yes.
60.
Yeah, capital projects have been,
Can also include the EMA or
EMS.
EMS.
I think it's police and fire, I think
Police and fire.
EMS, because that has been, yeah. I mean, it's, statute says police and fire.
Police and fire.
It's a carve out.
So,
Well, it just, there's no limitation for operating for police and fire. So it's not like the schools where you can give a max of 15% per year for educational programs, but it's operating for police and fire as much as you want.
so the 15% a year for schools,
Mhm.
is that only for active TIFs, or what about the ones like Web Will that is inactive, or the courthouse TIF?
That I'd have to look at. I've never been asked that question about TIF areas that are no longer active.
The ones that we have those reserve funds
Yeah.
in for capital
Mhm.
We don't-
projects.
Is Wapaka considered not active because it's actually,
No, it's still
Over?
active. It's active for one more year.
because we're paying the bond?
Mhm. So you could use 15% of that 1.3 million. I would check with the attorney on, I could follow with the attorney on the inactive ones.
Would you do that for us, please?
If we could have the statute on the police, fire, EMS, or whatever it is, the new, I want to know about that, please.
That one it is.
I know you guys haven't done any financings for a while, but if you did, would you guys still use iSmaller?
That's who.
I
And
think
I'd show you
probably
guys,
shop around, right? I mean,
you've used iSmiller, as long as, from
I wouldn't blindly
25
do that
years.
without looking at the rates.
Yeah,
or whatever's
Well,
out there.
the only reason I ask is I know Heather James has worked with you guys from iSmiller. I'll probably ask her on that inactive question, the attorney, because I know she's worked with you guys in the past. And they've helped grade all of your TIF areas. So, going back to page 9, the bonds and the trustee accounts. As you can see, this is more than what's enough to even make, not including what you're gonna be getting in June and December. There's enough money here to make your last payment in January. So what's gonna happen is you could instruct the trustee to use this cash in these 3 funds to make the last payment. And then what's left over should be transferred to you to put your allocation fund. So you shouldn't have to make in December, transfer any money to the trustee to make that payment because there's enough money in there.
So we just leave that in the fund, not have to transfer anything?
You'll have to, Shannon Marshall is the, we'll have to give her instructions that, the last payment should come from these 3 funds. That way you don't have to make an unnecessary transfer.
I wanted to mention, because you brought that up about the police and fire, and I had just read about that. If you all go to, I could print it, but that's a lot of paper, and then we're, so you guys could read it. If you go to columbusindiana.gov, columbusin.gov, they have a handbook for Indiana Redevelopment Commission members and their attorneys that was prepared by, you can tell me if you probably already know about this, Barnes and Thornburg.
Mhm.
And they have it out there for the public to view, and it has an awful lot of good information.
ColumbusIndiana.gov.
If you just Google Handbook for Indiana Redevelopment Commission members and their attorneys, that's what, the first thing that will pop up is the Columbus, Indiana's website. And there's a lot of good information out there, including the information about the fire and police departments.
So it's fairly new. It's got all the
I think it
new.
started, they update that every year.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. I don't want something out,
No.
that would be outdated and then some new.
Right.
I don't know, I'm trying to think. It may not have all the very new legislation that came out this spring.
I don't
Is that
think
when
it
this
does.
came out?
But I know it came out soon after that.
Is that when this police and fire came out?
No, that started
No,
in
that's-
2019, I think. So it's still relatively new.
But it's in this that they have out there, because I read that today.
Now, the thing that I caution clients using TIF for police and fire is, I mean, your situation is only unique because this TIF area is ending. But what you don't want to do is, hire, 5 new staff
Right.
and knowing that
Not
you have this TIF
sustainable.
revenue stream because it's going to end one day.
Right.
And then all of a sudden you have 5 new hires, but no revenue to back it up. So, but you don't, but I mean, I guess you could with, 800 grand over $1 million in here, that'd last you a little while. And, but that's just something to think about. You just don't want to.
And then the future councilman would come back after us.
So it's good for one-time kind of shots in the arm. I wouldn't, base your budget.
And it's for operating or anything that they need, or?
But that's just police and fire.
It's more of like a one-time thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I definitely see, I think for counties.
Could you pull out of there to put in a reserve? Because like if we wanted to set aside money to replace their vehicles or
Yes.
something like that, we could pull that money out and say, here's a specific home rule fund that we have set up. We have one for ambulances now. I'm just, and all
Well, you
of
just keep it in your allocation fund. Like I worked in Hancock County and, Hancock County on 74, they have all those big warehouses.
Mhm.
And so they help buy their township fire departments, fire trucks every so many years because, they're responsible for all those warehouses. So if you, I don't know if you have townships that need fire equipment or something like that, but they're responsible for Wapaka and Web Wheel. So that's another use that you could help some of your surrounding entities. Fire, you could make the argument that.
But you can't take it out to put it in a home rule fund that we have already established that's restricted for
I
only
don't
those
think so,
purposes.
no. I just keep it in the allocation fund. 'Cause you have to use it for a capital project, so.
I would, but I just like to have it like earmarked.
Well, could you not do a resolution? I know people can dissolve
Even,
resolutions.
you could obligate the funds here, kind of like you do, at the county level, obligate what's in your allocation fund for when it's ready.
Okay.
But, fire, for sheriff's cars, you can make the argument that they have to patrol these different allocation areas and that's a capital expense. So, that's something you could use the money for that would help you with your county budget.
Absolutely.
At least for the next couple of years. Tight.
Yeah.
The lit got pushed off another year.
Yeah.
So,
So those are the things that, giving money back to the units is great, but if you're gonna have to, increase your lit in 2029 to
Yeah.
help pay for these things we're talking about, you might as well use this TIF. So,
okay. Well, thanks for that.
then your, last area is the Riverview West allocation area, which we kind of carved out a Wapaka area in 2015. We thought they were going to maybe do some expansion to the parcels adjacent to it. And as you can see on page 11, and as you guys know, there hasn't been any new development out there as at one time thought. So it's only collected about $230 a year.
Sherry, is this the one where you're talking about the value went down?
Yes, and this is, we're not gonna do any vote or anything, but I'd just like to put in everyone's mind. I brought this up last year, I'm gonna bring it up again. I really believe we need to dissolve this. I'm not sure why we have it out there. We're not using it, we haven't used it. I know it's not very much, but it's taking monies from school and police and fire.
Do you think they are going to expand in that anytime soon?
I don't know, but I think it's worth talking to the commissioners about.
The only
Okay.
thing that I would, if you think they're going to, because you're only capturing $230, you're not really taking much away from it.
Right.
My only not concern, but thing to think about is if, let's say you're just in the TIF area and then next year, no, they do want to expand into this parcel and you do want to help provide them incentive and TIF it, then we have to go through all the steps of creating a TIF area, which means hiring us and hiring Ice Miller. And that's,
But in the meantime, as we keep this, when our other one expires, this is the only one we have, so we have to continue to pay for reports every year.
that's true, all the administrative gateway, that's true.
Yes. So I just want people to think about the pros and cons of it.
Yeah.
And make some decision on that, and so that we at least thought about it, instead of just leaving it sit here without even thinking about. And I know it costs a lot to establish a TIF, but it costs a lot to keep one too.
Is it still, for TIFs, like, you know, we built a courthouse with the TIF. I'm not really in favor of that because it doesn't really bring any additional assessed value. Is that still a thing where you can do that, use it for county buildings? I mean, I'm not in favor of it, I wanna put that out there, but
To be used for any capital project insert.
I mean, isn't the entire purpose of it to grow your assessed value? And so you're not doing that when you build a county building.
The argument is, I won't say argument, but the logic behind it is that, you know, everyone, you know, in whatever TIF area,
They wanna live around the courthouse?
but they want to have a nice courthouse to go to and do their business.
I get that, but I'll see how it grows the assessed value. I don't know.
I wouldn't say the logic, I would say the
I'm
workaround,
just saying that
the
that's,
excuse to use it.
that's how they justify it.
Well, I'm not in favor of it. Yeah, anyway.
I mean, some don't like the fact that you can use TIF for sheriff cars or police cars. Because there's one community that we work with, State Board of Accounts writes them up. It's a city, pretty big city. They write them up every year because they use TIF for police cars.
You mean they TIF an area and only those people are paying for the police car? Or they're
I don't know
increased
how-
assessed value?
I don't know how big the TIF area is. It's a pretty good sized downtown TIF area.
Is it-
And they have multiple TIF areas.
But it's not the whole city. I mean,
No,
it's
it's
a
not the whole
portion of the city.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I'd be a little upset too.
But State Board of Accounts writes them every year, but they have an attorney, it's actually, the one we mentioned, they put something in the policy says, no, by statute, we have the opinion that
So
you need to
until a
support it. So,
Litigation would go through,
Yeah.
and there'd be case law then.
Yeah. so it's, you know, part of it's subject to opinion and
There's always
Preference.
interpretation.
Why do they write them up every year? The attorney's just gonna tell them it's wrong. It's okay.
the State Board of Accounts has their opinion, and they're sticking to it.
Sounds like something that needs to be addressed with the legislation.
Exactly.
But I will warn you, because we do have another client that it is capital projects, except for the police and fire.
Right.
Like we have another client that got written up because they were using their TIF to purchase equipment for one of their parks, which is a capital piece of equipment. But they were also using TIF to paint some of their existing equipment.
That's
And that
maintenance.
considered maintenance,
No,
Yeah,
and they
no
got written up for
This
that.
courthouse TIF used to be used for maintenance, and it was inappropriate, and I brought that up a long time ago, and then it stopped.
It's, yes.
So you have to be careful
Yeah.
on, you know, the different.
Because I read that, I mean, can't use it for mini blinds or to replace, you know, your chairs or whatever.
Oh, I forgot, turn to page 14. So this is all the taxing units that make up Troy Township, which is where the little pockets of areas located. See the county, the township, the school, the library, and the airport. You can see the various tax rates that up to $1.76. You can see the tax base. So looking at the county, you know, the tax base of the county is $880 million or $888 million. You can see the budget of the county that's payable from property taxes is $4.9 million. And you can see the box there. You can see the tax rate $1.76. You can see the incremental assessed value at $74 million So that's the building and the equipment that we captured this year from Wapaka. So take that times $1.76, and that's how you come up with the $1,319,000 worth of TIF. So let's say for 2026, we were able to end the TIF area earlier this year. And instead of capturing that $74 million and collecting the $1.3 million, we passed through that $74 million of assessment. So if you go look at scenario 2, the budget of the county doesn't change. They're at their maximum levy. We can't raise another penny because we're at the maximum levy. So that 4.9 million doesn't change. But you look at the tax base, it's $74 million higher. Now it's 963 million instead of 888. So now you can see the tax rate needed is only 51 cents compared to at the top 56 cents. So now, or if we hadn't created or captured the TIF for Wapaka this year, the county could have reduced its tax rate by 4 cents. The CUME fund's a little different. The tax rate doesn't change. So as the tax base increases, you generate more money. So by not capturing Wapaka, the county could have increased its CCD fund by about $22,880. So if you look at that for all the other funds, if we hadn't captured that $1.3 million of TIF this year and let it all pass through, the tax rate for Troy Township would have went down about 18.5 cents, from $1.76 to $1.57. So everything else being equal, which we know it's not, but for next year, you can see approximately about 18-cent rate reduction in Troy Township by this TIF area ending.
It's amazing.
For the first time in 30 years.
Yeah. That's a pretty eye-opening page that you prepared there.
So, like I said, I pass this, here's the hard copy. I can send you electronic copy too. That's the example of the letter. Actually, it's the right one.
Can you send this in an email version too?
Yes. That's the pass-through letter, assuming that you don't want to pass through anything for the Riverview area. Now, that's something that, what you could do, instead of ending the TIF area, you could say we want to pass through 100% of the Riverview
Okay.
area and not capture that 230,
But leave the
but leave it
TIF open.
open, but just pass through everything. So that way you achieve what you want to do by not capturing anything. It's going to make reporting. I mean, there's going to be, well, for next year, we'll have to report on 2025, so there'll be some reporting. But going forward, I mean, the reporting could be very, very minimal. And I mean, even if you did capture, I probably would recommend me not come next year unless for to do a presentation. I'm happy to come to talk about TIF, new legislation.
Right,
But there's no sense for me to report that you collected $230.
right. Exactly.
Yeah. But that's another thing is, I can reword that if you want to pass through 100% next year of this TIF area.
And can we have a little discussion on that, folks?
And you just have to make that determination by June 15th, so it doesn't have to be tonight.
So
I mean, I'm not
I'd
aware
really
of these
like to,
projects, but I don't know.
I'd like to put that on the agenda for next meeting, and that gives everyone time to come with your thoughts. That'll be a May meeting, and then we can get back to you with them.
We probably need to talk to our jail solution and see if they're aware of any projects that they can reach out to. Sure.
Again, you're only collecting $230, so you're not gonna be able to, you got like $400,000 in the bank that you can always use, but.
Right.
Well, I mean, for this, if you wanted to dissolve it, if that's what you're considering.
Okay, no,
Just so
I was
we know
talking
both
about
sides.
the pass-through, but, we need to think about
We can
all
look at all
of that.
right.
The pros and cons of dissolving it versus keeping it, and
Mhm.
and if we were to keep it, would we want to pass through the 100%?
What are the costs associated with keeping it
Exactly, and that's what we talked about before, so
or
let's
restarting a
come,
new one?
let's come prepared to discuss that at the May
It's
meeting,
long, we're starting new.
okay? And we'll let Jason continue then.
I know you'd ask, earlier about getting the, like the original legal documents, declaratory and confirmatory on some of your existing tip areas. And it is on Gateway at the DLGF, but we don't have access. We can't get, we know that we can see the files, but we're not able to open them. So we're still working with Anna at DLGF to try to get access to that.
I can't see it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's kind of frustrating because they require us to download all this stuff every year, but then they don't.
but then they don't give you access.
Yeah. So
Because
no
I
one,
know I went out there originally before I even asked, and it's like, oh, well, I guess I just don't have access, but I got some,
Yeah.
you would or you would.
Do you have documents on the original intent of Riverview West? I mean, there had to be all these
Yeah, there's
public
plan
hearings and
and-
everything. What was
Yeah,
it? What was
none
it
of
that
us
didn't
have
happen?
any of that.
Because they spent all that money for what?
I'm trying to recall, I think Alvin thought that Wapaka was going to make an expansion right there, and we were trying to be ahead of the game, I think.
Are there documents somewhere I can read about that?
I can look and see what, let's find in the file here.
Or if they're online, I can look. I just need to know where.
Well, it should be on this Gateway at DLGF, it's there, we just can't
Can't get it.
open them.
I didn't even think I had a webinar or had a conference call with Anna told me today about abstract, and I didn't even think to ask her.
I'd just be curious. Do you know what year it started? What year is this?
2015.
Okay. It's a long time to just sit. So does it have the same 30-year life?
No, tip areas that were created in 2028 and after have a 25-year life, but the clock doesn't start ticking until you issue bonds. So right now, in theory, this tip area could go on forever as long as you don't issue bonds.
It's because it was after 2008. And then it's 30 years, 25 years after.
25.
Once you issue bonds, that starts the 25-year clock.
Anybody have anything else? I know we're gonna ask Jason if he would stay for item 5 on the agenda, the Tell City Schools project as well. Okay, so we have some questions and we need to talk with RJF Solutions too. And we have a little, and the school corporation, I know in the past they, a resolution, Tony, you're gonna help me on this too. He's our school board rep. And, anyway, they had done a resolution and that we were using the Web Will, I believe, TIF, that they had committed $100,000 per year to the school corporation to use for capital projects.
Mhm.
And that went on for a while. And then they didn't make any requests the past few years, correct, Tony?
Correct.
And part
We
of,
didn't because, and again, everybody on the board knows that we didn't because we were developing Forest Canton and that was growth and we didn't want to take away from money that was possibly needed to develop that subdivision.
correct. And so now, when we go back and look, so now this year, the school corporation had a request, and the request is not the $100,000 because they pared it back. It's more like 31,000, is that correct? Something
Somewhere in
like
that area.
Somewhere in that area, 30,000. And, but that has expired because that request was made, it would have expired in 25, would have been the last year for them to request. And so then the question remains again about using that allocation fund is that I know you can connect any of the TIFs to the school corporation. I mean, that's an easy thing to do, but we want to make sure we're not doing anything wrong.
Mhm.
And what steps would be required in order to fund that project.
Well, any project, whether it's school or not, has to be in your plan. Like you talked about when we first created any of these tip areas, we had the declaratory resolution and a plan. And in that plan, it would have listed all the intent of the tip area and the projects that you wanted to fund.
This was the excess funds.
Well, no, this would be any funds.
Okay.
Any funds. You have to, state why you're creating a tip area, what you want to use the tip for. Sometimes the list is very general and vague. Sometimes it's very specific. So that's one thing I would want to try to find is legal documents and see what was authorized when you first created the area.
I think we've
And we
asked,
did
where-
have that.
I think we've asked where the plan is, but
We did
we
have,
don't know where it
the
is.
school was a set aside part of that.
Okay.
It is there.
Didn't plan, okay.
That's how we did it.
That's how they did it originally. And that
We don't
resolution
wanna-
was to give them $100,000 a year for 10 years, but that's expired.
Well, I mean, that resolution would be like that'd be like an agreement between the redevelopment commission and, the school.
Mhm.
We want to make sure that when the TIF area, whichever TIF area it is, stated that we've carried this TIF area to, provide incentive to walk with pocket, provide, infrastructure improvements, provide capital projects for the school. It would need to be listed in that original document, the TIF
And
area.
that's what we have to find.
Yeah.
We don't.
So that's the first
And we
thing.
don't, yeah. and
well, the county doesn't have it. I mean, I've talked to Chris and she said she doesn't have any of these documents. So what do we do about that?
I can ask Ice
Who would have
Miller.
them?
Ice Miller should definitely have them. And,
What the heck?
could your prior local attorney,
Christoph.
yeah,
I
Chris.
mean, we should have all that, right?
I mean, it should be,
Boxed away in retention, but I mean, locating,
yeah, I mean, auditor at the time would have received the legal documents, but yeah, where they've been filed at might be difficult to find, but
I'm
yeah,
gonna search some emails from Chris.
yeah, Chris would have them, or I can get them from Ice Miller. They would have them in their.
I
feel like
believe
you can
I
get them
have
if you
that.
can. Just to make sure we have the most up to date.
You want
recent-
for all of the TIF areas, since you have,
If we don't
That
have
would
them,
be
sure.
fabulous.
okay,
Yeah.
It would be. It would educate all of us.
and if you could send that to me too, then I will
Yes,
create the
then
file.
it's kept in the auditor's
probably-
office. for
And I'm saying, what I think's happened is, once it's dissolved and put away, it's probably filed away, so there's boxes and boxes and.
But this way it would be kept on
Yeah,
the
and we
computer
can keep
and the search would be
electron-
easier.
electron.
I'll
Yes.
email Heather James and
Okay.
copy you, so she sees it.
Okay.
It's coming from the county.
Yeah, the most recent, of course, if there was any amendments or any changes, we want whatever's the
Okay.
latest.
Yeah, and then probably Chris and Heather would have been the ones that would have made those recent amendments, and if it's just amendments to projects, I'm
I'm
not usually
almost
privy to
positive I
that,
have an email that states that.
Okay,
and I may not have been privy to that, because it would have been a financial.
Yeah, we'll just need the plan though, make sure it was updated.
So if it's not in the plan, you can always amend the plan to include the project, but to amend the plan is the same steps as creating TIF area.
Yeah.
It starts here, you amend the plan,
Big deal.
it goes to plan commission, goes to,
all of those same
It's a
steps.
big thing.
And that would even be for, like, the courthouse tip, which is already expired. We would even have to do it for that allocation
I
fund.
think you would. I mean, I think
All
you
of
would.
them.
I mean, that's kind of I don't want to play attorney, because I'm definitely not an attorney, but I would ask your attorney, but you're not supposed to spend money unless it's in your plan. So, and that plan still, even though your TIF area is dissolved, you still have money in it. So I think you would still need to amend the plan.
And then the only other way to get that back to the schools would be to redistribute it to the units that lost it.
Mhm.
Okay, just food for thought.
If I find it, I'll send that out to
I
everybody.
mean, like if your school had, like in Plainfield, we used TIF, this was a long time ago, when Plainfield was my clients, we used TIF to help build a bus garage,
Mhm.
and the TIF didn't fund all of it, the school funded part of it, but then we used TIF to help fund the other part of it. So you could use TIF that way. That's because that's a bus garage is a capital project.
But you had to go back and
Yeah, we had to amend the
Original-
plan.
had to amend the plan,
Yeah.
which
And
is, yeah.
it's a lot,
And this
but-
is safety and security is what they're requesting funds for.
So I mean, there's a lot of steps, but like, you wouldn't need me involved because you're just adding projects. So I wouldn't need to be involved. It would just be really, your local attorney could make an amendment and just add a sentence or two. Starts here, goes to the planning commission, goes to commissioners, and then, back here
Okay,
for a public hearing. So there are a number of steps, but I don't think you'd have to get a lot of professional fees to make that amendment.
okay. Great.
The one thing I would do is if you are gonna make the amendment, I would throw everything in there that you could possibly do, so you'll have to make one
One time.
amendment, so. And that's the same thing for police and fire. If you want to use TIF for that, you'd have to go back and change your plan, because I know none of those had that in there because it wasn't legal at the time.
Okay. And you will find that out about the 15%
For
to
the
schools
dissolved
on
areas?
the dissolved areas schools, okay. Anybody else have any other questions for Jason? Thank you so
Great
much.
as usual.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Always learning.
Thank you.
And we'd love to have those extra reports,
Yeah.
if you don't mind, I'd love that.
And if you could, like I said, send the digital version.
Yep, I wrote that down too. I got my to-do list is, find out the inactive TIF areas can use the 15% school legislation, send the police and fire statute, or get legal documents for all the TIF areas, and send copy of the report electronically.
Thank you so much
Thank you.
for all of your help, greatly
Safe travel.
appreciated.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, thanks.
Thank
all
you.
right.
Safe trip home.
Yeah, pretty much, it didn't rain hard, but just kind of a constant rain all the way through to Scottsburg.
I thought it looked like it's more north.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's gonna get us started, I believe.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, thanks.
All right,
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.
Take care. Be safe driving home.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna move on to item 6 for Canton Heights. Number 1, under number 6 is Comcast, and we still have that, request from Comcast prior. Mandy, did you have anything you wanted to say on
I don't
that?
think so. I think last time we spoke, we were just making sure our attorney.
That we were okay? And as long as that what I had found out was as long as we do not go on the actual property of the homeowners, and I did email Comcast, and I was assured from Comcast, and I will retain that email, that they will not, unless they're putting in service for that particular
That's been
homeowner,
requested,
which then they would get permission.
Individual request.
So I would like to make a motion that we allow Comcast to go ahead and finish their installment of property, of the equipment into Forest Canton Heights, so that if any individual would like to request Comcast service, it would be available. Do we have a second?
And we're sure that we don't, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No,
We're sure that we don't have any kind of agreement with PSC about rebates or coming back around, where they were the only one. I mean,
I was told no from the previous
Mhm.
president, but.
Yeah.
No, we did
Other
not.
than that, I don't
We
know.
didn't have anything proprietary.
Let's,
I still, I know you've made a motion, but
yeah,
in
we're
the
supposed to have a
conversation,
second and then we discuss.
Yeah.
Okay, so
somebody
if
said,
there's no second, there's no reason to
I'll make a
discuss.
second.
Okay, now let's discuss.
thank you. So I'm still taken back by the communication, because both the gentlemen from Comcast that came to our last meeting said this was communicated everywhere, except to the RDC, who owns the land.
Who owns the land? And I have a problem with the initial communication, which again is part of the reason that it was,
We had no idea.
we had no idea. But I think that by them coming back now, they're trying to resolve that. And
Sure.
that's why I'm
I
wanting
just
to,
don't understand how it happened. That's,
I don't either.
understand.
I don't think so. To my understanding, the gentlemen that were here were not there at the time either, so they
Yeah.
can only say what, backwaters or what happened.
and I think you
Apologizing,
could
but
probably tell from when the
I'm sure
gentlemen that were
they
here,
understand we're all pretty disgusted.
we were
with the
all
way it
kind
was
of like
happening.
taken back. It was like, because it was very frustrating for us as the prior board members, when we didn't, as Tony said, we had no communicate, we had no idea what was going on. All of a sudden they just showed up. But again, it's not these people I hate to hold against.
Oh, absolutely.
After that meeting, I was contacted by Steve Martell's, because they had contacted
Yes,
him.
I was contacted by
I
him as
referred
well.
him to you. He said, well, what can I do with that? I said, well, Sherry's our president, so he said, well, I'll give her a call.
He did, but
I know
Steve wasn't trying to get in it. He just wanted,
No, they called him.
they called him and he just wanted to know if I foresaw any issues, because they had talked about getting their attorneys involved, and Steve thought that was unnecessary. And I assured him it's not necessary.
I thought it seemed
Things
like we were gonna do that.
things
That
are
meeting,
different,
that
and
was the
yeah,
Yeah.
and that was the impression I was under too, and that's what I told Steve, and so, and like I said, I did contact after with our attorney, I did email Comcast and ask them to verify about the property, and they're very accommodating and said that they
They
would
do
not
offer
do that.
service that's not available through PSCI, there's like cable TV.
That's my understanding, yes.
I know they said cable TV, internet, security, and
I think they
Oh.
I think they both offer similar services, but there is a missing television component. I
Right.
don't feel that PSC offers anymore.
And
unless
They
I'm
don't.
Yeah, I think they just do streaming, which
And
is
they,
high-speed
and they
fiber.
used to, and when
Sure.
this subdivision first came about, I wasn't on it, but at that time, they would have offered, PSCI would have offered television, but they don't anymore.
I think it's just as long as they understand the way the communication. They also, part of that motion, they need to make sure they're getting their proper permits if they need to from the city as well. I don't know if
Yes,
they've
and
contacted our local.
They
officials.
did,
They did.
They-
They went to
they
the
did.
city.
They went to the city
Nobody
and it's been
communicated.
Sure.
Us.
Yeah.
again, exactly, no
Yeah.
one
They
communicated to
did.
us.
It fell under the 2 mile
they said they did the
Zoning.
city,
city,
Southern Power,
but nobody told us.
NDOT.
But none of those organizations, the city, no
You're
one else
correct.
reached out
Yeah.
to the property owner.
Yeah.
So,
The minute said there was no communication. That's what Tony said, you said. Which there was.
Right.
It'll be, the next time,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I
we've
think
communicated,
we've expressed our
yeah,
concerns.
Please express
please
it.
clue us in on.
Yeah, and I would hate to hold back options
Absolutely.
for the community. I mean, if I was living in a subdivision, I would want options.
The residents.
Comcast did no wrong.
I don't feel like
They
so.
communicated.
Yeah,
It never came to us.
Just
It
never.
was, John was on the board then, he was stunned.
He was stunned. John had no idea about it. So, and again, that should have come from other places.
sure.
So, anyway, we do have a motion on the floor. Is everyone okay if we call for a vote? Yes, okay. All those in favor of allowing Comcast to proceed, signify by saying aye. Aye. Are there any nays?
No, I just have one other thing to say that I thought of. Didn't they receive a cease and desist letter? I mean, does that have to be like taken back?
As long as we do this,
Okay.
we're okay.
Okay, I didn't know if there was anything that
This
had.
would
So,
supersede. I feel
That was what I reached out to the attorney
Okay.
about. So,
I just didn't know if there needed to be a new document that said here, this is no longer, or if this did that.
okay, motion carries. All right, mowing contract. As we discussed last time, we went ahead with Coyle's Lawn and Landscaping Services. They have mowed twice. I went out after they mowed the first time, and I thought they did a great job. So we do have 2 invoices for them. So they are each of the contracted amount of $675. Again, they're mowing every 2 weeks. So I'd like, do we have a motion to approve the payment of those?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion by David, second by Kelly. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
What about
And-
the pond?
Yeah, I was gonna say the retention.
Sorry. Okay, and so then I would like to make another motion while we're on the mowing contract. I want to move that the Redevelopment Commission authorize the president to pay Coyle's Lawn and Landscaping Services LLC for mowing services in the Forest Canton subdivision on properties under the commission's control for a term ending December 31st, 2026, and with a cost not to exceed $675 per mowing occurrence. The president is authorized to submit invoices to the Perry County Auditor's Office for payment from the TIF allocation fund, provided that invoices are presented to the commission at a subsequent meeting. The reason for making that motion is so that we are not making Coyles sit and wait to
That's what we
get
did
paid.
last year.
And we did this last year. It's not that nobody would see them, and it's that everybody would see them. It's just if they submit one to me next week, I could go ahead and present it to the auditor's office to pay. So,
And is there any, you said through the end of the year, but I mean, technically, when does that stop? Just when?
Like in October.
it
Is
just
that what it was
depends,
last year?
yeah, it just depends on the weather and how
I mean,
long
just so they
people are
know,
mowing.
once it slows down, that it's.
Oh, they want,
you
yeah,
almost have to use
they
the end of the
understand
year
that, yeah.
that way. And
Yeah,
Sometimes November,
yeah, that's,
Yeah.
grass still grows.
If they submitted me one in December, I'd say, hey, what are you doing? I don't think they would.
No.
So we need a second on that.
I'll second it. Did you make that motion?
I did, I read it. I'm gonna give it to you so you don't have
Yeah, I
to
did.
figure out what it is. Any discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Motion carried. Okay, then finally we have others. Do we have anything on lot sales or anything, Mandy?
We do, but the retention pond, is that something that's in this also, or did we?
Thank you. The retention pond is not in that. I'm glad you brought that up. I forgot. And so if you remember at the last meeting, we agreed that we were gonna have, the other service do that. The name escapes me right now.
was it Excel?
It's Excel,
Yes.
thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. You have a good memory. Excel on service. And so when I called him to see if he was willing to do that, he said absolutely. But then about a week later, I got a text saying he would like to wait till late June or July to do that to ensure it was dry. And I said, I don't know about that. I think that the commission was wanting it done right away. So
It's
I
dry.
know. I drove out there and it was dry.
Yeah.
And so I said that I would bring it to the commission and see what they have to say, and I'm just gonna let you all discuss it. I think it needs to be done
I
now.
wouldn't like it if I lived there.
I wouldn't either.
I mean, it just needs to be
I agree.
maintained properly, I think, sooner than later, but that's my opinion.
Have they walked it to see how wet? I mean, did they feel like it's extremely wet, or did they just assume? Not being
I
facetious,
don't
just-
know the answer to that. I do know that I did drive out there afterwards and maybe that much water was in it.
Yeah,
And,
Oh,
you
so
know,
we're having to wait it.
that's not enough
Oh,
to,
you did. There was some water in there.
I said, retention, yeah, it does have some probably all the time, a little bit.
and, you know, I don't know whether it's rained since then. I'm sure it has. I don't know if we get a downpour today or whatever, but I feel like it needs to be done right away.
Is it something where they can't do it, or just their schedule, they would rather do it at that time with the dry, I mean?
Or is it more expensive because it is wet? I mean, there's
They didn't-
factors, you know.
They did not want
He's,
to
he's
get,
gonna use blades. He is not gonna take a piece of equipment and
Correct.
they're gonna take their weed eater heads off and put saw blades in
Right.
it, so.
they did not want to go in
They're walking it then.
to walk,
They're
walking in.
You're correct.
So is it, I guess my assumption always is it just probably costs a little bit more to do that.
Well, he had, when I said that, it was my impression that the commission wanted that done right away. He had said, well, then it would cost more. And I said, the commission did not approve an additional cost. So that's why we would have to bring it here.
Maybe we need to see what extra that would cost if he's gonna give us a quote or.
I'd like to go out there and look at it.
Yeah, because I don't know how, I mean, it's growth, but I don't know how much more we're looking at.
I don't know anything about
I
it,
don't think it's that
so
bad.
I
Can we
feel
table it to the
uncomfortable.
next meeting?
I don't know.
We
It doesn't
can,
look
but
that-
then we're into May, then we may as well wait till June. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
I mean, to me, either we need to say it needs to be done now, or we may as well wait, because if we wait till the next meeting, we're the end of May. Now then it's June. I mean,
That's kind of.
We could have a special meeting just for that purpose.
do what?
We could have a special meeting just for
Oh,
that
we could
purpose,
do
you know,
that.
within 48 hours of whatever time frame.
We could do that.
You're gonna be doing these minutes.
Yeah.
I'll try with the minutes, it shouldn't be long.
Good point, David.
That wouldn't be much though.
No.
It looks like you've got a good template going on.
Huh?
Looks like your minutes, you got a good template going on, it should be easy.
Oh, it's not.
Oh, I need direction. What do you want me to
I'd hate
tell?
to see it wait, but also if he's gonna charge us more, we would have to prove that, correct, or?
We'd have to know what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He's
okay.
gonna have to give us a quote on what
So
that
would everyone be okay with my saying we prefer to have it done now?
is. What's the extra fee?
If there is an extra fee, we need to know what it is.
I mean, I
We
understand the
may or
extra
may
fee,
not approve
everybody
that.
charges more for
Right.
dirty jobs, yeah.
Tony, thoughts?
I'm gonna go look at it.
Yeah,
I'm gonna see how bad it is.
that's, yeah,
It's
I
quite a bit
encourage
rough,
y'all to
but-
look at it. too, to see what you think. I mean, I'm not the one
I've
who would be
seen it.
getting
I
in that
don't know.
muck doing it, so
Is
I,
Excel the one that did it last year, or
no one did it.
no one did the retention?
That's why it
Did
needs
that?
to be done. This is completely brand new.
Okay.
If you get a brush hog in there, it would be nothing.
Okay. All right, so I will find out those items and get back with y'all.
And lot sales?
Lot sales, yes, that was me next. Since our last meeting, I believe, we have completely sold, lot number 1 has finalized. That transaction happened. I recorded everything at the courthouse and turned in the, funds for that to the proper entities. My question on that was, I know a check then goes to the Perry County Memorial Hospital, I assume. I don't know what that looks like. That part of the equation, I'm not aware who does.
Okay, so what we've done in the past, we waited until we got several of those and then we would pay. However,
We're kinda
I remember at the last meeting, it was the last meeting or the one before, with the old, before this group was on last year, where we had decided to, since we're getting down to not be doing that, it's easier to keep track if we just went ahead as we sold them to do that. And that board approved John going ahead doing that. I don't know, I mean, it'd be really easy for me right now to make a motion that as we get paid for a lot, that we allow Mandy to go ahead and request a check, go to the hospital from the auditor's office.
It'd be easier.
Unless you did it like once every 6 months or something, that's the only other.
That's up to you.
I think it would go over as you did,
I do too.
Pay them as we go.
yeah.
Pay the debt down. I agree.
So I'm gonna make that motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Pat. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, anyone opposed? Because I only heard 2 ayes. Okay, motion carries. Sorry, I'm deaf.
No, you're-
Okay, Mandy, so you'll be able to do that then?
Yeah, I'll do
Yeah,
that.
Chris knows how to handle that. You
Yeah,
just
so
need to
just
let her know to go ahead and
yeah.
pay that out.
And that was sold to a private individual who is hiring one of the developers who are already out there building. So
Wonderful. And that was lot 1.
that was lot 1.
Okay.
As you first come into the right.
How many do we have left?
Sorry, 14, I think.
That'd be 13,
14.
that's 27.
And there's,
So about
there's
half.
several new construction that are really nice.
I think so
They
too.
continue to pop up. I think it's great.
I actually just went in lot 9s and lot 19s, toured that for a potential client.
Really?
Very nicely done.
Wonderful.
And we went through lot 10s
They are
also.
nice.
Well,
I walked around the ones that were for sale. They look
Who'd you go to?
What we
I
add,
went to
we've added
lot
over
10,
$5 million worth of assessed
Arnold's,
valuation
and
there
then
already.
Sanders built
That's
that.
amazing.
It is.
That's,
For
I
$1 million
mean,
investment,
that's
we've added
amazing.
$5 million.
It's reoccurring.
Reoccurring.
Right.
Wonderful.
And it does, the utilities, reoccurring.
It would either be for new people or free up another space for somebody else.
For somebody
Yeah.
else, yes.
It's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, if there's no further business before the board, the meeting's adjourned.
And you have to turn that off somehow.
Let's see. Chemistry.
I have another meeting.
You do?